Hey everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be very special because it not only includes me, but it includes 5 other YouTube creators. We have received a decal from Duncan Custom Airbrush, and we're all going to add this decal to a tumbler and create our own tumbler so we can give our fans some inspiration on how you can create your very own tumbler. So I have these 2 decals I received from Duncan Custom Airbrush. So I've received these, and also we'll be collaborating with Flynn Sisters Boutique, Mr. Nola's Glitter, Sandy's Organized Chaos, and the Purple Stitch. So I will have all of their YouTube channels posted in my description below, and once they release their video, I'll update their YouTube channel and then I'll post their video in my description below so you can see all of our tumblers that we created with these decals. Make sure you also check out my description below for the link to download this decal that Taylor from Duncan Custom Airbrush created for y'all. And I'll also have all of my materials that I use in this video in my description below, including all the links and some coupon codes for y'all. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this tumbler. I'm working with a 20-ounce stainless steel tumbler I got from Maker Flow Crafts. I went ahead and I sanded this down with a 180 grit sanding block. After I sanded this down, I then sprayed it with 91 or 99% alcohol just to get rid of all the grime and some oils that you might have transferred on the cup from your hands. After that, I took flat white or matte spray paint, and then I sprayed just an even coat of spray paint on this tumbler. And it doesn't have to be even or perfect, as long as you just have a nice white base on your tumbler. When I received these decals, I thought it would be really cool to put a drip on the tumbler. I know I just did a drip tumbler, so I thought I'd do kind of a peekaboo drip tumbler. So it kind of complements the lips that are dripping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a peekaboo drip up top with the glitter on the bottom, and then spray paint it a nice white or maybe a light blue. So what I did was I took my measuring tape for my tumbler, and then I just measured around the top of my tumbler, and it measures about 11.5 inches of the diameter. So just keep that in mind. And then I wanted to create a drip that goes about 2.5 inches down the tumbler. So what I did was I cut out this template. And so I'm going to put this template on. It's 631 vinyl. It's not permanent vinyl. So like most of y'all know, I use Cricut Design Space, so you can see that I have my template on Cricut Design Space. I went to Google and I typed in drip PNG or drip SVG. I saved it to my desktop and then I uploaded it to Cricut Design Space. All I did with that one image is I duplicated it, and then I kind of put the 2 together. Once I put the 2 together, I then welded them together. So once it's welded, you can see I have this one image here, and this is welded. Then I sized it about 11.5 by 2.5 inches. So it's about 11.5 long because the diameter of my tumbler is going to be about 11.5 round or diameter. And then I wanted it to go about 2 to 2.5 inches down. So that's why I made it about 2.5 inches. Once I did that, I cut it on my Cricut Joy, and then it left me with this. Again, make sure you use 631 vinyl or temporary vinyl. Do not use permanent vinyl. The reason why we're not using permanent vinyl for this tumbler is because this vinyl is going to be a template. I am not going to keep this vinyl on my tumbler. So for my next step, what I'm going to do is, since I made this template about 2.5 inches, I am going to take my measuring tape again. I'm starting from the top of my tumbler here. I have my craft towel down so my tumbler doesn't roll. So I'm going to start from the top of my tumbler, and I'm going to measure about 2.5 inches. And then I'm just going to make a little line here. That's all I'm going to do. You see that line? I don't know if you can see it because it's just a mechanical pencil. I'm going to take my measuring tape and wrap it around my tumbler. Once I take that, I'm just going to draw on the tumbler. I'm just going to trace that area because it's going to give me a rough estimate of where that 2.5 inches is. So you can see I have just kind of a rough idea of where it is. I'm sure you're wondering why I drew that line. So the reason is because I am going to be adding glitter. So again, this is going to be a peekaboo tumbler. So I'm going to be adding this beautiful firefly glitter from Glitter Heart Co. I think this would really complement these lips, how it's kind of like a coral cheetah print on the lips. So, and this is kind of like a coral fire look. So I think these go really good together. So I don't want to glitter the entire cup if I'm just going to peekabooing just the top half. So I don't want to waste all the glitter on the bottom. Now, if you do want to peekaboo like other spots around the tumbler, then you'd glitter the all of the tumbler. Since I am using fine glitter, that's the reason why I'm able only to do the top and leave the bottom. If I was using a chunky glitter, I would probably just glitter the entire tumbler and then create that peekaboo, because with chunky glitter, as you know, it is very textured, it's thicker, it pops up more, so you don't want a nice, you don't want like a really bumpy tumbler up here and then really smooth. It might look a little uneven, but I think I can get away with it with this nice fine glitter.
I will be adding my glitter with the epoxy method. I have already mixed my epoxy off screen. Now for this step, I am going to be epoxying another tumbler. So I'm just using some leftover epoxy, because you really don't even need 5 milliliters of epoxy. So you probably will be using about 1 or 2 milliliters of epoxy. So make sure you do this, or try to do this with another project that you're doing, so you can just use that excess epoxy. So I'm going to be applying a very little amount of epoxy on my tumbler, and then that's when I will spread it out evenly. Make sure it is even, because if it's not spread out evenly, then whenever you go to apply your glitter, the glitter is not going to be on the tumbler evenly. So you saw I just stuck my finger inside my tumbler, and then I just put it on the tumbler, and I have all of the epoxy on that tumbler that I need. Now that I have my epoxy on my tumbler, I'm now going to put my glitter on my tumbler. You can see that I transferred it into a Dixie cup. It just allows me to put the glitter on the tumbler a lot easier than pouring it out from a bag. So I'm dropping that glitter all the way to that line. So the line that I made, I'm just dropping it all the way to the line. And that's where that template's gonna go. And once I'm finished adding the glitter to the tumbler, what I'm going to do is let this tumbler spin for about an hour or two. After an hour or two, I will turn off my cup turner and then allow it to air dry or air cure with the tumbler off, or the cup turner off. And then after about 4 to 5 hours, that's when I'll go ahead and move on to my next step. So I do say about 4 or 5 hours, because it all differs on how thick your epoxy is, the brand of your epoxy, and the temperature of your room. So I have my tumbler all glittered where I need it to be. So I'm going to allow this to spin, air dry or air cure, and then we'll move on with the next step.
Welcome back, everybody. I am here with my tumbler, and the epoxy is completely dry underneath the glitter. So for my next step, I am going to be placing epoxy on the entire tumbler. Again, I'm working with a 20-ounce stainless steel tumbler, so I'm going to be mixing about 20 mLs of epoxy. So 10 milliliters of part A and 10 milliliters of part B. I'm sure everybody knows how to apply epoxy to a tumbler by this point. If you do not, I do have help videos in my description below, so be sure to check those out and then come back to this video. So I'm going to put on my respirator mask, mix my epoxy, and then I'm going to add my epoxy to my tumbler. Welcome back, everybody. My tumbler has been spinning on the cup turner and air curing for at least 24 hours. So your tumbler should look similar to this. You can see some of the glitter got on the bottom, but that's fine. What I'm going to do now is just give this a light sanding, only because I'm going to be spraying this with spray paint. So a lot of y'all know that spray paint shows a lot of like divots if you have any I wouldn't say mess ups, but where the epoxy didn't kind of stick to the tumbler. But it looks like the epoxy stuck pretty well on this one. I am sanding my tumbler down with a 180 grit sanding block, and I'm just doing a light sanding. You might want to use a 220 grit sanding block for the top if you are going to be sanding the top. The reason for that is because if you sand down glitter too much, then it might sand the glitter down and you might get kind of a silver effect up top. So I'm making sure I'm doing this lightly. And after I'm finished with this, I'm going to be applying that decal drip that I printed out or I cut out earlier. And I'm going to be applying that to the top of the tumbler. Now to move on to add my template or 631 vinyl. Whenever you add this, make sure whenever you put this on the tumbler like so, you have the glitter still underneath it. So if you have your drip hanging down below the glitter, all you do is just move the drip up a little higher and place it where the glitter is going to still have that peekaboo effect. So I'm going to remove my decal and then place it down on the tumbler. And I want to make sure that behind the tumbler is still going to be that glitter. So you see that I added a lot of space below, which for me, I'd rather have that than not have enough space. So it should fit all around the tumbler like so, but you can see where it overlaps here. So you could take a pair of scissors and kind of cut that off to have a nice even overlap, or you can just have them overlap because it is a drip. So the drip can, it doesn't have to be too specific. So now I'm going to go around the tumbler and just press down that decal just to make sure that it's laid flat on my tumbler, because whenever I go to spray paint this, I don't want any spray paint going underneath that decal. I have a little bit up here showing through. So again, I'm going to be spray painting this. So I'm just going to take some blue painter's tape and just tape off the top because you can see that glitter. So this is a good thing to do if you do have some of the glitter peeking through up top. And I'm just going to roll that into the tumbler, so when I spray paint, it's going to not get onto that glitter part, because I want that part to be completely sealed off with no spray paint. And if you want, you can go around and just place the blue painter's tape around your tumbler just to have your decal more secure on the tumbler, if that helps you more. And then I'm going to go around again on the tumbler and just press down that decal again. I don't want any bubbles on the outside sticking up because I don't want any spray paint going underneath that decal. I want a nice template so when I remove it, you can clearly see the drip. And I apologize, I should have chosen a different color for my template because you can hardly see it on camera, but it is an orange template. If you see, I don't know if you can see it, but I have some bubbles inside the decal, like inside of, let me see if I can focus, inside of like this part of the decal. If there's like bubbles up here, don't worry about that. It's not going to affect how you, how it spray paints or how it comes out. Now that I have my decal pressed down, I'm going to take this tumbler outside and I'm going to be spraying it with a flat or matte white spray paint. The reason why I chose white is because the decal that I got from Duncan Airbrush, it does have like a white border around it. So I'm going to spray paint it white to see how it looks first. And I might put some spray paint on the bottom. Just depends on how it looks with the whole white, because I wanted to have kind of the light blue to complement the blue lips. After spray painting it outside, I let it dry on the cup turner for about 25 minutes. And now we're going to peel off the decal, including the blue tape. So if you could just start where you finished laying the decal, and then you're just going to peel it. It is very important that you peel this up once your spray paint is completely dried, because you don't want to risk peeling up the spray paint. And once it's peeled up, it should look similar to this. So what I'm going to do next is apply another coat of epoxy over this. I will be adding epoxy all the way up top, all the way to the bottom. Before I'm going to apply the epoxy on the tumbler, I went ahead and I took some spray paint and I just spritzed it on the white part. If you do want to do this part, then make sure you do this while the template is on the tumbler. I took it off and then I realized the tumbler was a little bit too plain. So I went with a light blue. I use Aqua from Rust-O-leum. It is a matte finish, or I'm sorry, it's a satin finish. I wasn't really concerned about the finish. I was just more concerned about the color. So I took it about 6 to 10 inches away from the tumbler and I just spritzed it around the tumbler, and it made kind of a airbrush or just like a splatter effect on the tumbler. And I'm now going to mix my epoxy, and then I'm going to apply epoxy all around the tumbler. I will be mixing about 20 to 25 milliliters of epoxy, so about 10 to 12 milliliters part A and 10 to 12 milliliters of part B, totaling about 20 to 25 milliliters of epoxy. I don't want too thick of a coat of epoxy on this tumbler for this coat because this isn't going to be my final coat of epoxy. I will be adding another coat after I add this coat. Everybody, welcome back. My tumbler is all dried or cured. The epoxy is completely dried. So now what I'm going to do is simply just add the decal. Now, I don't know if you are wondering, if you're asking yourself, why did I put another coat of epoxy on whenever I could have just added the decal and then added the coat of epoxy? The reason why I did that is because since I added the glitter underneath here and then I spray painted it, a lot of y'all know that once you spray paint it, you can see a lot of imperfections. So I didn't want to add this decal and then be able to see the bumpiness underneath it, if that makes sense. So I went ahead and I just added another coat of epoxy just to be sure. So if yours didn't come out bumpy or anything, then that would be up to you to add that extra coat of epoxy. So I'm just going to lay this down like so. I really like that double drip effect. And then from here, what you would do is you would just do another coat of epoxy. So I would probably do about 20 milliliters of epoxy since I already have 2 coats of epoxy on here. So that's 10 milliliters of part A and 10 milliliters of part B. You do not have to seal this decal, so you would go right into epoxy in this tumbler. The last thing I have to do is just clean around the rim and the inside of the tumbler. If you need assistance with that, be sure to check out my description below. I do have help videos for all of my beginner tumbler makers. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.